Obi-Wan Kenobi. So Obi-Wan Kenobi is a series that I think we have been waiting for a very, very long time. It was already speculated for years, even before Disney's purchase of Lucasfilm and when the sequel trilogy came out, and even after years of denial from Ewan McGregor. Even now he admits that he spent 4 years lying about the fact there's going to be an Obi-Wan series. And I think a lot of people wanted this series, not necessarily because of the significant events from Revenge of the Sith leading into A New Hope, but I think just to understand the character in between that particular time, because of course it's, you know, it's roughly 20 years within that time frame. So that's why I think it was particularly key to address Obi-Wan's story in between when Vader became part of the Empire and when he came out of retirement, so to speak, in A New Hope. And of course, because Obi-Wan is one of Star Wars' most influential characters, I just think it seemed too good an opportunity to miss. So Obi-Wan Kenobi is set 10 years after the events of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and we see him in exile on Tatooine, living a very isolated life as he watches over Anakin / Vader's son Luke from afar, who is in the care of Owen and Beru Lars. Obi-Wan is recruited to rescue Leia Organa, who of course turns out to be Anakin / Vader's biological daughter, and it's up to Obi-Wan to find her, during which he reunites with his former apprentice. So as exciting as the concept of an Obi-Wan TV series was, I did have 1 or 2 hesitations going into this series, particularly in terms of the logic of the narrative. I think the biggest question mark for me was Episode 3 ended where Obi-Wan started to go into exile and Luke was where he was, and Episode 4 began in exactly the same situation. So if Obi-Wan came out and started to fight back against the Empire again and potentially got Luke in danger, how did they get back to that position again at the end of the series to the beginning of A New Hope without Vader or anyone else knowing where exactly he is? So that's what my thinking was at the time, and I'm not going to talk too much about particular moments within the series that kind of address those kind of questions, but you'll have to just watch the series for yourself to find that out. And we also know the significance of Vader and Obi-Wan's reunion in A New Hope. We know how important that is to the series. It was just, how is this going to create drama to influence what's going to happen next in the original film? And to be honest, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic continuation of the Star Wars saga, even though it's very, very different because of course it's a TV series in episodes, which is weird actually, because of course Star Wars is famous for calling their films episodes, even though now we've got actual episodes from a TV show. And it did bridge a nice gap in between the prequels and the originals, in many ways a lot like how Rogue One did. It gave the fans what they wanted to see, but also gave us a new story and introduced new characters that expanded the universe even more, where it didn't feel shoehorned in, but it just felt natural to the story. It did have a little tinge of nostalgia that would make fans, you know, squeal, as it made me, you know, really happy when watching it, but they had a vital part in this series too. The series was directed by Deborah Chao, who is already familiar with Star Wars, having previously done a few episodes from season 1 of The Mandalorian, and she's also claimed to be a huge Star Wars fan. To be fair, like most directors of the Star Wars saga have, and I think because it's a female director as well, that's pretty big too. But I thought her vision for the series worked really well. It was just beautifully shot, particularly on the cinematography, especially when going into new planets that Obi-Wan does a lot of the action sequences as well. Just the beautiful cinematography and just the way it was filmed was just absolutely stunning. It really was. And that's what I appreciated about Chao's directing of this series. Not just bring back the magic of Star Wars, but to enhance the drama between the characters. After all, it was bouncing off the back of Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, which is arguably the darkest film in the series, and not to mention has probably the most depressing ending as well. But I thought she did a really good job in this series, and to be fair, I'd like to see her do more Star Wars. Now onto the acting. Of course, when you're an actor in Star Wars, it's either a make or break situation. It'll either skyrocket your career or it'll completely break you, as we found out throughout history. So Ewan McGregor returns as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think most people will probably agree with me when I say that Ewan McGregor's portrayal of the character was easily the best acting side of the prequel trilogy. His performance was just absolutely top-notch, and it completely justified Alec Guinness's performance. In the prequels, you could see that Obi-Wan was wise, you could see that he was powerful, but he also had flaws through his emotions, and that's what I think this series particularly focuses on. A bit like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. So it was about exploring Obi-Wan's past, but also looking to the current times. He is going through a bit of a depressive kind of phase in his life, a bit like a midlife crisis really. That's what I think is key about the Obi-Wan character, and Ewan McGregor once again absolutely delivered. He really did. And it was probably his most emotional performance. And I think what I liked about the Obi-Wan in this series was that it wasn't just the emotional drama and the relationships between the characters that he had, but it was also the little tinge of nostalgia that fans love him for, and also the meme one-liners. But yeah, again, Ewan McGregor was fantastic. Once again, he was probably the best part in the prequels, and he's probably still the best in this series as well. In this series we also saw the introduction of Moses Ingram, who plays Reva / third sister, and her character arc is really interesting in this series because I think she's someone who's a very conflicted character. Now I think that's a key part of the Star Wars series, between good and bad, like light and dark of the Force. We saw that with Kylo Ren, we saw that with Anakin himself, we saw that with Luke, and now we're seeing it with Reva as well. This is something that's explained in more depth in later episodes, but I just personally thought that Moses Ingram did an absolutely brilliant job, and I really grew to like her character and her performance as the series went on. And particularly after the first couple of episodes, she received a lot of criticism, even racial abuse online, which still sickens me to my stomach, to be honest with you. This was absolutely appalling, it really was. It was just completely unjustifiable, and anybody who has been abusing her ought to be held up to account and be punished for it. Of course, Hayden Christensen returned as Darth Vader in this series because he was obviously Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. It's an interesting one with Christensen because he was under a lot of scrutiny from the public and Star Wars fans throughout the past 15-20 years, because of course, you know, Star Wars fans have their own vision of what Anakin should be and how he should act, etc. But I've always given Christensen the benefit of the doubt, really, because I just think he did the best with what he was given, and I actually grew to like his character and his performance. I'm not saying he was like Oscar worthy or he was absolutely brilliant, but I just thought he was just good enough for the character, and you could just feel the drama and you could feel how powerful he was, and just the transition into Darth Vader in the prequels. In this series, he takes a different approach because he's not really portraying Anakin Skywalker as we know him. He's portraying Darth Vader, of course, being in the famous suit and the mask, the return of James Earl Jones as the Darth Vader voice, which is absolutely iconic. But what I really liked about Christensen's portrayal of the character was that you got to see another type of Darth Vader, because when we've seen him over the years in the originals and a little bit in the prequels and in Rogue One, etc., we've always seen him as this intimidating and powerful character, but you don't see him as terrifying, I would say, and as chilling and scary as he is in this series. And I would make a case for Rogue One as well, despite only being in the film for about 2 minutes, because this is set only 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, and even through some of the action sequences you could see the athleticism of youth within the character despite having limited limbs. And I think just seeing Darth Vader on the screen again was just absolutely fantastic. He's easily the greatest villain of all time. In fact, he's probably my favourite character of all time in terms of the character dynamic because of Anakin Skywalker and redemption, etc. That's what I think is important to me, and that's why he's still my favourite character ever. But just the general portrayal of Vader in this series was something that was, you know, fresh and raw and nothing different to what we've seen him before, but something to be fearful of rather than be like, you know, intimidated by in terms of, you know, strength, which is what we got in this series. And another interesting casting in this series was Vivian Lyra Blair, who plays 10-year-old Princess Leia. I mean, this girl was born just 4 months before Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm back in 2012. And what a way to kickstart your career. Talk about pressure at such a young age to play arguably one of the most iconic women in cinema history during her childhood days. And I think because of the passion of some Star Wars fans and the scrutiny that a lot of people go through because of those fans, sometimes being a young actor can be quite damaging in the series, as we found out with Jake Lloyd in Phantom Menace over 20 years ago. And gradually I really warmed to Blair's performance in this series. Personally, I don't understand the criticism of the character. Because she's a 10-year-old girl, she's not going to be this hero with, you know, gun blazers, and she's not going to be flying ships, and she's not going to be trying to take down the Empire. To be fair, she wasn't that much different than when we first saw the Princess Leia character in A New Hope, because she was this sassy, sarcastic damsel in distress character. So Vivian Lyra Blair did Carrie Fisher's performance justice in that respect, and that's the Leia we got here, and that's why I think she deserves a huge amount of credit for taking on such a huge role at such a young age. And yeah, she did absolutely brilliantly, and I applaud her for it, so well done, Vivian. I think it was also a nice touch to see Bonnie Peace and Joel Edgerton return as Owen and Beru Lars, Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa, and of course some other appearances. I'm not going to reveal what they are, but there were some surprises in there as well. So overall, I can happily say that Obi-Wan is an absolutely fantastic bridge in between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, just like how Rogue One was. In fact, next time I binge watch the entire Star Wars saga, which I tend to do at least once a year anyway, I will happily watch this after the prequels and before Rogue One, leading into the originals and the sequels, because it just ties in so well. And it's not just because a large portion of the actors return, but it's because it just feels right. But as I say, in my opinion, it delivered everything that I expected it to. It satisfied fans, it gave them a sense of nostalgia in certain sequences and certain moments, but also it gave us something different in the sense of focusing more on the drama of the characters rather than just the action sequences. And I know there's already been speculation about a second Obi-Wan series, and personally I don't want it to happen because I felt like it just ended on a satisfying note, but equally I wouldn't put it past Disney to do one anyway. So what did you think of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Did you think it was good? Did it meet expectations, or did you find it a shattering disappointment? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did want to enjoy this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell tick so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care everybody.